Where in the Folk is not and should not be viewed as a news source. Any names, places, or likenesses mentioned are purely fictional, and any information discussed is purely speculative. Guest opinions are their own and do not reflect those of anyone else. Where in the Folk is not responsible for content accuracy of any stories that are told or what people do with these stories. This show is vulgar, sometimes graphic, and due to its content, it should not be viewed by anyone actually.
Welcome to another episode of Where in the Folk. I hope everybody's had a great night. And I'm sorry I couldn't be here yesterday. I was dying.
we said you were in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Mexico.
Yeah. Thought you drank the water.
Might as well. But yeah, I'm back tonight. Morgana unfortunately has suffered an injury, so we're she gets that taken care of. So I missed it last night, so I may hit on things that y'all talked about. So
yeah, do you got a feel good you want to get into first?
Not really, no. I do, man. I was going to bring some more of the Doug Harless stuff that's happening around here, because it really seems like every time they release something new, I get a little bit more angry about it. They recently released a call from the judge executive whose property had the stuff stolen from it. That happened the day after. And the only thing he said about it was, did it have anything to do with that feller that was killed last night? And they was like, I don't know yet, things like that. And he was like, oh, okay. But later on in the call, he says, well, they called me about 1 o'clock, tell me about it. So it's really starting to seem like a
conspiracy.
It's starting to seem like they're trying to bury it as quick as they can. Because so far what we know, within 90 seconds of knocking on the door, they shot him 5 times, did no life-saving measures, didn't have any of the cams because they couldn't afford it anymore. However, they get grants for that, which they're saying they don't get grants for anymore, but everybody knows they do. And the same time they discontinued the cameras in 2023, they didn't give everybody a bonus, but they gave them a substantial raise for a week in lieu of a bonus. And the guy that stole this stuff had been in jail for 3 hours before they went to his house, to Doug Harless's house. And after that, the judge executive who owned the property, Judge Weaver, called and was worried about his nephew's lawn equipment. So it was a direct family member. And then he goes on to say, well, I'm not worried about my stuff, just my nephew's stuff. It'd take too long to itemize it for insurance anyway, just a bunch of trash like that.
Yeah.
The city council the other day, a bunch of people were calling for the mayor to resign. And I'm assuming that's going to continue. So the politics in London, Kentucky are getting crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just knowing Kentucky, though, I don't think anybody's going to be resigning.
To me, it wouldn't be the mayor. You need to drop down below the mayor. As far as making sure that officer had all the proper training and everything else.
Well, they attacked it like a SWAT team. Like there was like 7 or 8 of them that went for the video I seen over a weed eater.
A weed eater. Yeah.
That's wild.
Eater. At midnight, 11:50 at night on the day before Christmas Eve. Like 10 minutes is going to be Christmas Eve. Like, so at this point, I assume they're going to try to say, because the guy said he's left the weed eater and stuff, which is what they said. I didn't hear him say this in his interview, but they said he left it with a drug dealer on Van Zant Road. So I'm assuming they're going to come out and try to say that this guy was a drug dealer. At this point, the way they've handled it, I don't give a shit if he was.
Yeah. They should have led with that, or I mean, it would still be an execution. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Landa. Hey, Abe.
Hey, Landa. Abe.
Yeah.
Cecil is naked tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I got sick, because I shaved my beard And
see that's what happened.
you
See,
think
I had nightmares about that. I remember whenever you shaved yours off completely, and you were looking like a baby face here on the show for a while. And I've had dreams where I was actually going to trim it up around mine, and I went too far and had to shave it off. It's scary.
I purposely did it just because I wanted to see how fat I got. I was like, I wonder how fat I've come to find out pretty fat. so that's the key. That's the mystery behind the shaving beard, if anybody was wondering.
Well, we did an extensive show yesterday on the California fires, so we're not going to hit on that too much. Alan, we do have a couple videos though, just as a follow up that we can play, just going and speculate about. The first one, we showed a video yesterday that was semi like directed energy looking. There's another one that started going viral of what appears to be another directed energy weapon. And I'll share here. I don't think we need audio for this one. I'm just going to let it roll and we can talk.
What the? Whoa.
Whoa. Wow.
Okay. Where's that supposed to be at? Is that in California?
Yeah.
What is that? That looks like a straight laser spark and stuff. That's
so and this is what I was going to ask is, like, what do you guys feel like this could be video edited or not? Like, we can watch it again.
To me, you can see the shadow of the person taking the video right there. You see their shadow.
Yeah.
It looks like they were videoing what I initially thought might have been a transformer.
Yeah, it definitely could be a transformer.
But that other light, you can look at it. I mean, the light's coming from the right side of the screen.
I think the reason that I'm kind of skeptical is just because there's no fire after it hits. You know what I mean? Like you can
you stop it right on the light flashing, like the blue light that's supposedly causing the bleed.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
you can't seek.
Okay. The way this world's going, I don't know. Did you touch topic on the fact that Malibu had recently passed a no construction law or whatever? No constructions.
No construction law?
It's either that or ordinance or something. Not too long ago, Malibu had passed a no new construction ordinance or law or something in the city limits. So Malibu's burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
One thing, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories because usually this only attacks the poorest of people, like it did in Hawaii and stuff, and it only gets like the poor people's homes. But this is attacking, all these mega millionaires and actors and stuff like that. It also burnt down P. Diddy's crib to the ground.
Really?
Yeah. I actually heard Mel Gibson talking about this.
What?
He's actually he was on the news talking about it, and he was like, this ain't verbatim, I only caught a glimpse of it, but he was leading to, I think they did it, but I don't know why they would.
Well, so we played a video. We had a prophecy section on the show yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we played a video of this girl who called it before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about a cover up of underground tunnels in LA.
Yeah.
And she kind of went into where those tunnels were and who used them.
Well,
so we covered the underground tunnels in Los Angeles last year on one of our shows. I don't remember which one, but we talked about the underground tunnels because some people said they seen reptilians in them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now, I've never really looked into this after I heard this guy talking about it, but there was a guy that supposedly worked in the underground tunnel that was used by the rich and powerful of California. He worked in a Starbucks that was in an underground tunnel.
What?
Yeah, he said that these no joke. He said that these underground tunnels were set out to where, like, this is why you never see like Will Smith at Starbucks. You never see like I don't know, like the really rich and powerful people just in random spots all the time. He says because they have entrances to these underground tunnels and they have amenities set up throughout the tunnels for them to get their stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Here's the other California video. So this one is supposed to be another UFO. We've already seen one UFO, but so you can see a plane here and then start looking like right in here. You see that? Let me see if he reverses it.
Play it back.
It's like,
what the?
Did you see it that time?
Yeah.
It'll be like right in here. Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
So you got an airplane. You can see what a regular plane looks like, and then look how fast that goes.
Well, you know what that is? That's a sky minnow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird. I guess it's just where these news channels are having these live feeds, but this is the second UFO that has been caught on a live news feed like this.
I don't know, man. This whole thing seems fishy, and even if it is, because I mean, this has been precursored for a long time. California dumps all of its reservoir water into the ocean. They do that just to nobody knows why. Anything that they have in the reservoir just flows straight into the ocean. Have megalithic pipes just pumping the water that's coming from upstate out into the ocean.
Yeah, yeah. They were also attempting to save some fish.
Oh yeah, the conservation efforts were a problem apparently, which a lot of that is semantics. I get it, but at the same time, all of this is a culmination into the problem.
And they don't handle their undergrowth, they don't handle preseason dead stuff. Similar to everywhere around here. Back in the day, people used to burn that off every season.
Yeah, well, in California, it used to be legal for people to, if they want to go out camping, they could go out, whatever deadfall was on the ground, it was legal for them to go out and pick it up and use it for a campfire.
Yeah.
But they stopped doing that decades ago. So all the brush out there, I mean, it just
piles up.
It just piles up.
Yeah. The biggest thing I've noticed about this is the class system. You guys probably, I think you talked about it, but that's what aggravates me the most about this whole situation. You have thousands of people still displaced in North Carolina who's being kicked out of their temporary homes right now as we speak.
Yes.
In the middle of a horrible winter storm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the government essentially does nothing for them. However, they're going to pay for 100% of these multimillionaires and like all of California to be taken care of.
Yeah,
that makes sense to me.
And we were saying last night, it's not even a political thing; it's a class thing,
right?
Because if you look like, and we said this yesterday, but the people in East Palestine, Ohio, got $750. The people in Lahaina who are still homeless, $150. And the people in North Carolina and Tennessee got $750. And
for those
qualified, yeah. And we've actually got a video, and there's an article.
Before you go to that, I want to talk about the plastics factory. Did you hear what the plastics factory that had all the people there in that flooding of the hurricane did? They said they didn't tell anybody they couldn't go home, but all the workers are saying they said you can't go home. So essentially, it's like if you go home, you're fired. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
So 6 people lost their lives. So this plastic factory, in lieu of that, to help the families out, somebody got one of their parents' last paychecks in the mail, came with some gift cards for fast food,
dude.
Walmart, that totaled about $100.
That's crazy. Companies that did that should be just yeeted.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a weird time right now. I honestly feel like people want to help people as much as they can, but we're in a situation now to where it doesn't seem like any kind of hierarchy wants to help anybody at all, unless it's somebody that can have some kind of political gain for them.
Well, and it would be different if we as taxpayers could choose where our money is going.
Mm-hmm.
But, we mentioned yesterday, like just in the past week, they have sent $2.5 billion more dollars overseas for, wars that we don't want to be in.
Yeah.
The majority of us anyway, minus a few politicians who have political interest there.
Yeah.
But it came to light this week that not only are North Carolinians who were impacted still having to pay their mortgages on these destroyed homes, they are going to owe their property taxes. The state ruled that they're still going to owe their property taxes on destroyed homes.
Well, you got to have the property taxes, for the schools and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
That could have easily been offset, though, by some of this money that's being sent elsewhere.
Yeah, the trillions of dollars we send every year to stuff that doesn't impact us at all.
Mm-hmm.
And
to me, with that right there, I mean, the way the river went through and washed all of that out, how many of those people still owned as much property as what they used to have?
Yeah,
exactly. That doesn't exist anymore. That's a great point.
Exactly.
How taxes on that? Like, how do they have somebody going around and reevaluating the taxes? Like, I don't know, man.
Well, I do want to play this video from this fellow in North Carolina who is witnessing all of this. He was impacted, and I think it's a really powerful message. So I brought it, and we can react to it afterwards. But I'll let it rip. Hang on.
Today is January 10th, 2025. I'm going to start this video out by saying that we're praying for California. We've had several people make the trip across coast to come volunteer here with us with Valley Strong Disaster Relief. I'll be the very first to admit that before September 27th, I would see a natural disaster and I would think, oh, that sucks. Then I would go on about my life. That's because I'd never been affected by it. My mindset has completely changed since Hurricane Helene, and I'll spend the rest of my life being involved in some sort of storm relief and trying to pay back the hearts of the volunteers and to help the victims. This morning, I saw a post made by the leader of the free world. He said that he was announcing that the federal government would cover 100% of the cost of measures to protect the lives and property in Southern California for the next 6 months. He told the governor and officials to spare no expense and do whatever they need to contain the fires and protect families. I hope that happens. I wouldn't wish what happened here on anybody, not even my worst enemy. What about Appalachia? We are 105 days in since one of the most devastating storms known to mankind. We are still supplying our own campers and shelters while paying mortgages on piles of rubble. We are still running our own supply hubs with phase 1 items to many people that lost everything, including their homes and their jobs. We still have bridges out. Only 4% of the debris has been picked up. You heard that right, 4%. Many businesses are bankrupt with insurance denying their claim. We have a polar vortex slamming western North Carolina while people are going through 10 gallons of propane a night, wondering where they're going to get their next tank. Every single thing that we the people have done for relief efforts so far has been nothing but a mere band-aid to stabilize our communities until proper help arrives. So with all that being said, I hope LA does get fixed. In the meantime, we'll be right here fighting for each other. But when you're done there, don't forget about the backbone of America. Don't forget about Appalachia. Our taxes are paid too.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, when you look at it, if we cut the funding off to Ukraine, if we cut the funding off to other nations that we're sending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars too. Couldn't all this be restored?
Yeah. Well, like I said, just in the last week, 2.5 billion more committed to just Ukraine, and Ukraine's not the only problem, but and I think people are starting to wake up a little bit to some of this. Not saying that it's fast enough, but I think a lot of people are waking up to the theft of tax money.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's absolutely terrible to have to see people like that who are going through such a tough time.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, you can't really play whataboutism. Like, everybody deserves to be rebuilt. Everybody deserves to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're doing it in California, that's great, but they need to be doing it for everybody and not just the haves. Because it really is. It's become the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
Just in the last little bit, that's become very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's I know we spent an hour talking about this yesterday with the fires and everything and the disasters. It's an absolute atrocity. And I think that eventually it'll come back to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully sooner than later. But we do have a ton of stories from the past 2 weeks, because week before last we were talking about the terror attacks. Yesterday we were talking about the fires, and it absolutely consumed the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to get in tonight and hopefully catch up on all these articles that have been sort of buried into the news cycle because of these huge issues. Not to say that they aren't super relevant, and we'll probably keep talking about them, but we do have some pretty bizarre news that we haven't got to cover yet. So I think that's what we'll get into next. Originally, if you remember, about 2 weeks ago, they're all over the world, people were seeing weird fog. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
I didn't go outside today until the fog lifted.
So I had a ton of videos, and you can find them. Like, if you go out on really any social media site and just put in weird fog, you're going to see tons of videos of people saying that the fog wasn't behaving normally. And I brought a couple things, like, rather than to play those specific videos, for a couple weeks ago, I had a Friday flashback that I was going to, Landa, there's a lot of people saying that the fog was making them sick when they were breathing it. There's people filming it, and it just didn't look right.
I want to do something tonight. It'll be a few minutes to get this set up, but I want to show you guys something crazy.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead and start getting that set up.
Okay, just let me know, and I'll take a pause. But the Friday flashback that I had brought was the time that the U.S. military sprayed toxic germs on American cities.
Yeah,
and this has actually happened a couple times, but it turns out that conspiracy theorists, basically added another feather into the crown. But the U.S. military did test biological agents on American U.S. cities using microbes and mock attacks. And this is from Edward Nevin of San Francisco, who went to a local hospital in 1950 complaining of flu-like symptoms. And long story short, it turned out over a roughly 20-year period from the 1940s to the 1960s, the Pentagon conducted biological warfare tests across the United States in cities like New York, Washington, and San Francisco, where they would basically spray toxic germs to see how fast they would spread in a pandemic scenario. And I've got an old white paper from later. Well, it's not a white paper. The white paper read very badly because there were still redactions. But I've got an article an article from even later than this. So this is from 1984. Army agents carrying suitcase atomizers sprayed unsuspecting travelers at National Airport with common bacteria 20 years ago. Declassified documents revealed this week in an experiment designed to gauge the nation's vulnerability to an enemy-launched epidemic of smallpox. And this was in 77.
Mm-hmm.
So they got caught from 40 to 60. They keep going in the 70s. Do you think they stopped in the 80s, 90s, or 2000s?
I want to do something. So if you live around here, you know what this is. This is snow. 100%. I just had my wife go outside and get it. It's snowing a lot around here. Sorry to interrupt this segment, but I want to show you this.
No, you're good.
So this is a cigarette lighter. So if you hold it to it, you notice it doesn't actually burn or melt. There's nothing dripping from it at all. And if you hold it on the undercarriage, it turns black. And I don't know if you know anything about snow, but it's supposed to be water.
Yeah.
And if you could smell this, it smells like burnt plastic. So
Well,
if you get snow outside, please go outside and do this right now.
we have to think think about all of the chemicals that have been released into the atmosphere the last couple years. All of the East Palestine chemicals, all the train derailments, all of the factories that have burned, all of the asbestos and formaldehyde and oils that are being released from these wildfires from the older houses that are burned. I wouldn't eat the snow. I'll tell you that.
No. When I was a kid, that was something to do. You know, something to look forward to if it did snow here. Which, you know, there's some years we don't get any snow. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But yeah, seeing this right here, I mean, to bring California back into it, you know, there was a video that I watched on YouTube years ago, and it was one of the rangers who was talking about all the trees dying in California, and he believed that it was because of all the chemtrails, basically, is what it was. You know, the upper atmospheric aerosol injection spraying that NASA has admitted to. And there was around here and in California, there was an oak blight that took place, and it killed hardwood trees by the hundreds and thousands. I mean, it was rough on the hardwood trees. And that guy there, which I wish I could find the video again, but that's what he blamed it on, was what they were spraying in the atmosphere was killing the trees.
Well, and we did an episode maybe 3 months ago on the history of weather modification.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't follow us on Rumble, go follow us on Rumble, and you can find it very easily. We did like a 3-hour episode on the history of weather modification and the side effects of all these chemicals they're using for cloud seeding.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't eat the snow.
No.
Don't eat the snow. There's just too many chemicals that have been released over the last 5 years into the atmosphere, into the water.
Yeah, and it doesn't melt like that. Like outside, it turns to water eventually. But we left the bowl sitting in there for an hour or something, and there was no water in it.
Really? Well, see, that thing I noticed today. I mean, our temperatures today got up to about 44, and you would think that would have been melting the stuff off. But it didn't melt off the way that I was hoping that it would today.
No.
I'll say.
Rumble's like YouTube without the censorship, Linda. We do stream to YouTube as well.
Yeah.
But it's just easier for the type of content that we post.
Yeah. But I'm sorry to interrupt that. I had that in my mind. And with all this weather modification, the fog, everything that they're pumping out, like it's untelling what they're trying to do. We already have a push for another pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
get to that too. I've got some articles about that.
All right.
Yeah. And I guarantee you there will be a lot of sick people in California as a result of the fires.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
they'll explain that away from smoke inhalation and stuff, which it does. It does make you sick for sure.
Well, yeah, I can pull the list back up. So you think about how old those houses are that were burned.
Asbestos.
Yeah, so they've got let's see, it was asbestos, styrene, formaldehyde, crude oil, plastic oil, lead paint, iridium, uranium, and radon are all getting into the air from those houses burning.
Yeah, that's horrible. And I mean, I hate to go back to it, but not only the rich are being attacked by this either. There's a lot of people that struggle in Los Angeles that are also affected. So
yeah, and that's you'll find that more times than not they're blaming homeless people for the fires, and there's been, this is alleged, but if you talk to Californians, a lot of locals will blame PG&E, which is their electric company, for failure of maintaining a lot of the electrical infrastructure around California.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the original patent, to get back to the fog for a second, I think we mentioned this before, but there was an original patent to create artificial open air fog for worldwide application and military purposes. That patent was filed in July of 1925. And if you're interested in reading that, and there's also downstream patents from it. The patent number is US 1665267A. So the application of spreading, bacteria, everything like that goes back a long ways. And they use different applications to do it. Bacteria and viruses for that matter. Yeah. But if we want to keep on that topic, I've got, let me see here. Where was it? California declared a state of emergency a couple of weeks ago in response to bird flu outbreak.
Yeah.
So the governor had proclaimed a state of emergency to streamline and expedite the state's response to avian influenza H5N1, commonly known as bird flu. This action came as cases were detected in dairy cows on farms in Southern California. And if you listen very often to us, we've talked about over the past few months all of the herds that have been culled and chicken farms where they've killed all kinds of chickens. But what I thought was weird about this, and I'm not gonna that's just the short and skinny of it. But what's very peculiar to me is the exact same day that California declared this state of emergency for bird flu, the CDC confirmed the first ever case of H5N1 jumping from animal to human.
Yeah.
So the first human confirmed case, the exact same day that they did the state of emergency.
And that seems logical to me because they probably found out around the exact time that there was a case that jumped. But my whole thing with it is that what we're going to be from now on? Like, we're going to be in a constant state of fear of just some kind of pandemic coming across and wiping us out. We're going to be subject to having to stay at your house every so often for months on end.
Well, George Carlin was way ahead of his time when he was talking about this.
Oh yeah.
He said that germs were the next big boogeyman.
Yeah. And if you read any kind of like old conspiracy books or anything, they all foretold this decades ago, that they're going to figure out a way to control the masses, which if with the last pandemic, you could obviously see the control of the masses across the United States. Even in little towns like mine, people were scared to death, terrified. And I know it was rough. People passed away from it and stuff like that. There's question on if the disease actually was what made them pass away, or possibly, the treatment they were getting. But
not many. I don't know of anybody that died at home and all of that.
Right.
It seemed like all of the deaths were happening in the hospitals, and that's all highly contested. Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. And what's even more peculiar, like if you think about what white collar businesses are doing, everybody, like all of your towers and all these major cities, are pulling people back in from home from the COVID era.
Yeah.
Because the billionaire property owners and these private equity firms are losing money. So they're spending millions of dollars to get people back in to those towers. And now you have, potentially another impending pandemic. So I don't know. Like it all seems counterintuitive. Like they obviously can see this on the horizon. Why would you be pulling people back into those offices and stuff?
Mhm.
I don't know. Like that could be a conspiracy in itself.
Yeah, very well could be.
And since I've actually had Mandy take that snow out of here as soon as I got done with it, I can still smell burning plastic. By the way,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, on a maybe a little bit of a more fun note, there was a Yakuza leader that got arrested.
Before we move into that, Stephen, do you want to go over what you just sent?
Oh, about the Spanish flu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's still on topic.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to cover that, I mean, actually, the Spanish flu actually began in Kansas. It's with people getting sick and being drafted into World War I, and they spread it. And the estimates of how many people died, were somewhere between 20 and 40 million people is what that was. And there are other reports of a woman who passed away from the Netherlands. She had stated that it wasn't actually the flu, it was actually pneumonia is what was being spread. So a bacterial pneumonia is something that is contagious that can spread. So, and I've had to stay away from my grandchildren the past few days because they tested, they had bacterial pneumonia. Fortunately, now their antibiotics are working, and they're getting over it. Their fevers are broke and stuff like that. Still doing some breathing treatments, but that's the thing, And but yeah, what was called the Spanish flu actually began in the middle of our country.
Yeah, and what's so wild about that is it infected about a third of the world.
Yes.
That was a wild one.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't the flu though.
That's crazy.
I know somebody that's in the medical field, and I consider them a pretty smart person. I was talking to them not long ago about the previous one, and they said it was just thick mucus, and they named off the drugs that they were giving people, which seemed to be helping because it would thin up the mucus and help them get it out. But the way that it attacked is just really thick. I've had that one now. I've probably had it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah. So
regardless, right?
That's just a new cold. It seems like it's always going to be around.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how like it's never really changed severity? I don't know. Like it all just seems weird to me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, with I know with what I had, it was very, very rough. When
I had something a couple weeks ago. I don't know what it was, but to open my eyes hurt. Like
wow.
My head just felt like it was going to explode. Like for 3 days straight, it was nuts. Laying down hurt, sitting up hurt. Have you ever had a chemical burn in your eyes? Like a severe chemical burn in your eyes?
Yeah.
I had a real severe chemical burn in my eyes a few years back. It felt like that. The only difference was I could see when I opened my eyes this time. Like it's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't had a chemical burn, but yeah, if somebody, I've been around welding before, somebody strikes the arc too soon. Yeah.
Have you ever heard the story of my chemical burn? It's ridiculous, by the way. It's stupid how it happened. So I got new contacts. And I went to Walmart and I didn't have any glasses on. I didn't have my contacts or anything. I can't see. I can't read like anything without glasses. So I asked a Walmart worker, I said, hey, is this contact solution? He's like, yeah. I was like, which ones? You know, because I have horrible eyesight. It's really bad. So he just reaches me a bottle, and I'm like, thank you. And I go home and I soak these contacts in this solution, and then I pop them in, and I'm like, ooh, that's burning. So I took that bottle and I poured it in my eyes.
Oh no!
And my eyes instantly fused shut. I couldn't open them, and it was like somebody had held a cigarette lighter to my eyeballs.
I remember that you came on the show that week.
Yeah, that guy had reached me like something like peroxide or something, and I poured it in my eyes.
Oh my!
Turned my eyes into hamburger meat. Like I couldn't see, and I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't do anything, man. It was nuts.
Ow!
Yeah. So don't trust.
Yeah,
Walmart to help you with anything.
So apparently he didn't want to be embarrassed that he couldn't couldn't be too good either, or he couldn't read. So,
yeah, it literally lit me on fire, man. It was nuts.
Oh.
I guess to shift away from disasters for a minute. So there's a Yakuza leader that pled guilty this week in New York to trafficking nuclear materials and a narcotics charge. And I hadn't heard about this at all.
Wow.
So a leader of, if you don't know what the Yakuza is, or it's the Japanese organized crime syndicate. It basically like the Japanese mafia. One of their leaders pled guilty in New York federal court on Wednesday to charges of trafficking nuclear materials and conspiring to traffic nuclear materials, including uranium and weapons-grade plutonium out of Myanmar, which was formerly Burma. His name was Takeshi Ebisawa. He also admitted to conspiring to purchase U.S.-made surface-to-air missiles and other heavy weaponry intended to arm ethnic groups in Myanmar, and to accept large amounts of heroin and meth as a partial payment for the weapons, according to the U.S. attorney that's bringing these charges. But he faces a 10-year minimum up to a maximum of life. And I've got a lot of questions here. How is he purchasing U.S.-made surface-to-air missiles to take to rebel groups?
Exactly. I never can find them. The gun store's always out.
Think about where we've been dumping all of our weapons.
How many? What was even Afghanistan? $1 billion worth of weaponry.
Yep.
I thought more than that. We left tanks, automobiles. We left everything.
And there are some reports that a lot of the weapons that we have sent to Ukraine end up on the black market as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure of that. Because what's happening is they're sending, like, let's say they send $350 million of weapons to Ukraine. Well, they're saying, okay, that was $350 million when we manufactured this 20, 30 years ago for Iraq.
Yeah.
And now they have to rebuild those same coffers for weapons. And that $350 million is all of a sudden $700 million worth of new weapons that we're having to manufacture for new wars.
Yeah. So the real cost of what we've been funding Ukraine to is a lot more than what we've actually been.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that you see a Yakuza leader in the news, first of all.
Yeah.
So it literally had to be, to me, because of the uranium and plutonium, which is wild that he was able to get his hands on uranium and plutonium weapons grade.
You know what's going to happen? There's going to be a congressman be like, but how do we make money off it? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. Like, if he was paying off the government, like giving them like a quarter of what he was making off of it, he would never got caught.
I'm sure it screams Fall Guy to me, because Yakuza is a very extensive crime network. It's not one dude.
Right. Yeah. I mean, where exactly were they getting that stuff? Is that they getting it from Africa?
There was very little details. The fact that they got a hold of the leader to hold accountable and not some grunt.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like some other stuff that's been in the news lately that whenever you try to add it all up, the math just ain't mathing on it.
It's kind of similar to how they'll find a cartel leader doing something
Yeah.
and bring them to the United States to hold them accountable, and not the 4,000 subordinates that he had who are still operating.
Well, they all go by the whole thing. You chop off the head of the snake, the body dies. But that's just not true when it comes to like cartels.
No, organized crime in general.
Crime. There's always the next person is always there to take their place. Like they train somebody. There's always somebody prepared for the next round. I don't know. Just the way that things makes, like cutting off the head and the body dies of a snake kind of plays into some other things in history as far as political movements went that might have worked, but not with organized crime. Which that's oxymoron in a way. I just said that politics ain't organized crime. That's weird, huh?
It totally is. Yeah, it totally is. So something that is also, just to double back to the pandemic and disasters for a second, did you all see where Zuckerberg announced the end to Facebook's third-party fact-checking and he admitted that the model became a quote-unquote tool for censorship?
Well, I actually watched a little bit of the Rogan episode with him today. I just caught a little bit of it.
He acts like he's not the CEO, though. He acts like somebody did this to me. Like,
well, yeah, that's what he was doing there. But he was like, the Biden-Harris administration would call us and scream and curse at my people. I'm like, and I was like, I kind of, as a CEO of, if he's what he has been depicted in the real, like in the mainstream, he might just be a nerd that likes coding. So
I don't know, dude. Like
the board.
With that, was it in 2000, the latter part of 2022, whenever he came out and admitted all that stuff?
Yeah. And he not only, so apparently he was on Joe Rogan, but before that, he was making his rounds with the news this week. Mm-hmm. It's not just him ending their fact checking; he's ending like their diversity and inclusion programs. He's ending everything, and he's like, "This wasn't me." And I'm just like, I have a hard time. Think about the timing of all this.
Did you hear?
He doesn't want to get nailed to the wall, is what it is.
Did you hear who he appointed to the board though?
No,
Dana White.
Really?
Yeah, so that might have a lot to do with it.
I think Zuckerberg has recently started training in martial arts.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think him going through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu may have changed his mindset on things.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's hard to forgive something like that when you had, millions of people censored for saying that just obvious facts, like just stuff that they saw, and being banned off those apps for free speech.
Yeah.
That they're saying because it's a private app, there is no free speech.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been thinking about this. If the Supreme Court decides to go forward with the ban on TikTok, and you guys don't have to do this if you don't want to, but next Saturday, I'm planning on putting together an episode on why they're really banning TikTok. And it ain't because of Chinese data.
The servers are in Texas.
Yeah. If they go forward with the ban next Saturday, I'd like to do an episode on the root cause of the banning.
I'm down.
I'll see how things go.
if I'm not dying or something, I'll be there. But yeah, I'll be there as long as I'm able.
And sort of in that pocket of things, there was a headline that really slipped through in between all of these disasters and stuff. So the U.S. Treasury said that Chinese hacker stole a bunch of documents from them in a major incident a few weeks ago, like maybe 2 weeks ago. and they said that it was Chinese state-sponsored hackers who breached the U.S. Treasury Department's computer security guardrails and stole a bunch of documents. Based on the indicators, they said that somehow they figured out that it was China. But they were alerted to the breach, and they have China always comes forward and they're like, we didn't do this.
Of course.
But they didn't get into details on what exactly they stole. But there was a bunch of documents compromised. Their digital keys were compromised. And with the TikTok thing, and I'll bring this up if we end up having the episode next week. So they're banning TikTok because of Chinese data. They're afraid that Americans' data is compromised. Where is that energy with the 400,000 acres of land that they've sold to China?
Exactly. There's places in New York that have their own Chinese police force.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it comes to hackers, I'm not even convinced it is China anymore. Like, I lost all faith in it, and then I had this much faith left in the mainstream media until they showed how hackers hacked into your system and showed a screen, and it was the way that you hack into computers on Fallout 4.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was Apple just recently settled a lawsuit because they've been spying on people for since iPhone 12.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because they don't have to admit guilt because they agreed to a settlement amount.
Yeah, that's the way the vaccine courts, the drug companies work. Yeah. They do not have to admit guilt. There was a court set up in 1988 where you can go get a settlement if you can prove your case. You can receive money, you can receive a settlement, but the drug manufacturers do not have to admit guilt, but you can receive a settlement.
That's exactly what Apple did. Apparently, it was a class action, and if you're an iPhone user and you have been an iPhone user, if you look into it, you'll definitely get a check.
Yeah.
Siri has been listening.
No shit.
And selling your data for years.
I mean, yeah, I knew that. And I mean, it's still a necessity I have to have. Like,
it's not just Siri, though. I mean, let's be honest. Your cars are listening to you. Everything's listening.
Yeah. The conversation you're having with you and your wife driving down the road or whatever, and
nothing's private anymore.
No. And that's the whole thing. Like data. I'm like, oh, China's taking your data for TikTok. They've already got it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
this is a good video. I think this is a good video break. There's an AI that I wanted to show. And this is important because they can literally see everything that's going on anywhere. And I wanted to bring this up to just basically be like, I mean, think about all the UFOs, the orbs, the UAPs, and everybody's like, we don't know what this could be. So, and for context, people have started calling drones Dior's to try to get the algorithm to circulate it more.
Dior's?
Like Dior bags, like the fashion brand.
Oh, okay.
So when he says Dior, he really means drone.
I've never heard Dior in my life.
Really?
We need to have a talk. So, this was released today. This is called Waldo 3. And what it is an AI system that you are able to...
Is it possible crank volume?
I think it's all the way up.
In the sky, or probably just a regular camera system as well. And it's called Waldo, the whereabouts ascertainment for low-lying detectable objects. And what it's able to do is detect different objects like light vehicles, persons, buildings, utility poles, boats, bikes, containers, trucks, gas tanks, diggers, solar panels, buses, probably more to come. But I just want to put this out here because this technology is available right now. It has been available. And this is just the latest version that was released today, January 2nd, 2025. And people are currently using it for, they have here listed, disaster recovery, monitoring wildlife sanctuaries, occupancy calculation, monitoring infrastructure, construction site monitoring, traffic flow management, crowd counting, some fun AI art applications, drone safety, avoiding people/cars on the ground, lots of other.
Okay, Linda said she can't hear it. So, I mean, you can see what's going on though. Basically, this AI works from a satellite or a drone, and it's tagging everything, like anything that moves, pretty much. And the person that posted this is like, because they're saying the practical application would be like personal recovery from I don't know, think you're lost in the woods, and you could send this AI over to discern whether it's wildlife or a missing person. But if they had this overhead technology to tag stuff, then they should be able to at least monitor these drone situations.
Mhm.
And I don't know, we've talked about like the satellite infrastructure that they have. It's pretty impossible that they don't know what's going on with the UFO situation.
Yeah.
And I can actually play, speaking of UFOs, I could play that UFO video that we were doing before the show.
Oh, yeah.
Let me get it going here. And I'll let everybody say what they think this is.
Yeah.
So this is a new UFO video from the last couple of weeks. Definitely weird looking.
Wow.
It's almost like, I don't know what to think about that.
I don't know. That's definitely something new that I don't know.
I mean, it this person said it looked like hoverboards. I really don't know.
That'd be fun. I'd love to have a sweet ass hoverboard like that. I'm trying to find something that I used to mess with back in the day. Have you ever heard of the 195 billion megapixel camera that China had?
No.
No.
I'm trying to find it now. You could get on it and you could like use it essentially, and it was so wild.
Well,
I can't find it anymore.
let me see.
Yeah.
What else? I'm trying to see what else weird we got
Yeah.
that I can queue up while you're doing that.
Yeah, really, I would just say this. I'm not nearly as concerned about whatever information China is receiving from TikTok now, because to me, the biggest thing that took place was in like 1994, 95, whenever China wound up with some of our secrets at a White Sands missile range in Mexico.
Yeah.
Because that helped them get their rocket program
Well, it's funny.
straightened out.
Like they'll come out and be anti-China against like TikTok. Literally nothing else. Like no politician is going to come out and condemn like their slave labor camps.
Nope.
Or anything like that.
Yeah, no politician or famous athlete.
That's another extremely good point.
And the whole thing about data, like they usually, as far as I know, which I'm ignorant to this because I data is one of those things. I'm like, I used to give that away for free anyway. On MySpace, they'd be like, "What interests you?" I'm like, "Oh, this does." And I click all kinds of little things, just give it away. Thank you. But I mean, what else could they use data for besides, predictive programming, like predictions on what we're going to do, what we want, and things like that?
Yeah, they already have your face. Like everybody is already selling your data. The Congress people literally said, "How come we make money on this?"
Yeah.
They're not making money on it. And there's some lobbies that have dumped a lot of money into the ban that we'll get into. I'll put everything together in a nice package that we can get into next week. But we were talking about the drug industry a minute ago. I wanted to share this video and see what you guys think about this. Hang on. Well, I think the audio. Hang on.
What did that just say?
It's really cool. But it says serious side effects include bleeding between the anus and genitals. Both of which may be fatal and have severe allergic reactions.
How do you get a fatal taint infection from like a heart? Say that again. Don't take that. Drug side effects are crazy. I'll stick with the one that makes me lose weight.
So it was a heart medication, and severe side effects may include severe bleeding between anus and genitals.
I might actually be taking that right now. Because I mean, it's pretty similar to what happened yesterday morning. Gold alert. This is where I'm at medically. You might want to tune out for a second. This is kind of disgusting if you don't like hearing about medical stuff. But my urine was solid red with chunks in it yesterday morning. And I about passed out when I was using the bathroom, so I had to basically rush to the hospital. I went
out in the fog.
Yeah, I went to the doctor, but it kind of baffled them too because my urine sample also included that. They was like, "That looks like skin." I was like, "Yeah, I know." I diluted it with like 80 ounces of water, and it still looked like a nice IPA that you couldn't see through at all, and with skin floating in it. So, and I'm on a heart medication, but it's for anxiety. It slows my heart down.
I don't know. Maybe look into the side effects. But speaking of skin, so Kim Jong-un cracks down on the sale of hot dogs in North Korea. So the penalty for being caught with a hot dog is labor camp.
Oh, wow.
So North Koreans have reportedly been banned from eating hot dogs as a crackdown on Western culture infiltrating the Hermit Kingdom. Kim Jong-un has declared that serving hot dogs was an act of treason amid the rising popularity of a South Korean dish inspired by the U.S. people. People caught cooking hot dogs face time in the country's labor camps, while they also at the same time decreed that people who get divorces will also be jailed. The regime's efforts to quash capitalist culture among citizens, it's basically says that people who get divorces are going to have to serve. Well, there's already a divorced woman serving over 3 months in labor camp. It says that there's about 80 women and 40 men imprisoned in the labor camp currently for divorce decrees.
And this is in North Korea?
Yeah,
North Korea. Yeah, our buddy Kim Jong. Here's my thought. So a couple of months ago, he said that he was opening the borders for tourism.
Yeah.
So how are you going to encourage tourism if you're banning hot dogs, man? Come on.
Yeah, you gotta get them fake wieners to draw Smirkins in. I don't know. But it seems like North Korea is one of those places. Like if you drop a piece of paper on the ground, they're like labor camp.
Yes. Yes.
If you say the instead of the labor camp, like it's
yes,
because their labor camps are, and the thing about it is it's generational labor camps for a lot of stuff that happens. Like if you get sent to a labor camp, there's a chance your son's going to get sent. And there's a chance his son's going to get sent, and his son and his son.
Well, and it's not just hot dogs that they're banning. They're banning basically any South Korean popular food is getting banned in North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, South Korea had a little uprising there for a while. I don't know how long it lasted, but they had enacted martial law. I don't even know what caused it. I didn't look into it much.
I also have another funny that's not funny. We mentioned how we left billions of dollars to the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Taliban, here's how they're doing. The Taliban has banned windows to stop women from being seen inside the homes.
Yeah.
Like as soon as we left, like they can't even wear, like their eyes can't even be shown anymore. They have like a mesh window.
And now their education only goes to the 6th grade.
Women can only be educated.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
That is insane. But yeah, it says the Taliban has banned windows that look into areas where Afghan women could be seen inside their homes because seeing women working in kitchens and courtyards or collecting water from wells can lead to obscene acts.
Yeah.
How do they get vitamin D? That's a legitimate question. Like, vitamin D is one of those things you have to stay fairly healthy. Mine's low as hell.
Yeah. They have also banned women's voices from being heard in public.
Wow.
I mean,
stop, dude. Stop.
I'm joking.
They're becoming far more radical than Iran.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look at all the women who, because they decided they didn't want to wear the face cover, or they wanted to expose their arms, wear a shirt or something like that out in public. Look at what happens to them. I mean, it's not good.
Well, and
what's so crazy about that whole thing, though, is back in the day, like the 60s, 70s and stuff, they were kind of westernized in that whole area, wasn't they? Like they were.
Iran was.
Yeah.
Until they removed the Shah of Iran, Iran was very much on pace to becoming a whole lot like a Western country. Like us.
Here's Afghanistan before the wars and everything back in the 70s.
Yeah, it looked like a fun place.
Yes.
So very similar, like, if you look up Iran in the 60s and 70s, it looked very similar to this.
Yes.
Women could show their faces until everything got radicalized.
Exactly. Yeah. Brigitte Gabriel, I'm trying to remember where she was from. Her native country, it was taken over by the radicals as well. I'll try to figure out where she was from.
But I think some of the blame for radicalization is probably money that's been dumped in by certain agencies to support one side or another in wars.
It just doesn't really make sense. Like I'm sure it has something to do with the religion. I've never really studied the religious side of everything over there.
It all has to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Landon, to your point, think about so if they're not letting women go past the 6th grade, they're not allowed to talk in public. There's arranged marriages. They're not allowed to be viewed. They have to cut their eyes aren't even allowed to be seen. Think about what this does 2 generations from now. You've got uneducated, mute, they just think that that's what life is, unless they were to be liberated at some point.
Yeah,
but we're beyond that now because we've also armed them to the teeth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, now it would probably wipe out most of the population if you went in and conquered it now.
Well, I mean, if they find a really good resource over there that we need, we'll go there and liberate something.
How much lithium do they have?
Yeah. No joke. Yeah.
So
it's But in Afghanistan, they've been fighting. I mean, Russia went in there back in the 80s, and there's some people who that could have helped out with the downfall of the Soviet Union.
Well, it's the same concept that happened in Vietnam, right? You can't bomb your way to victory in those places.
No.
No matter how much you bomb, because of just the landscape, like the way all of the topography is set up, it's impossible with all the caves and everything.
Yeah.
The guerrilla warfare and the people who have been on that land for thousands of years are going to always be able to have a defensible position unless you just nuke it.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to do that. Like, that's a terrible idea. But
yeah, that scorched earth is not earth you want to be walking around.
No.
And to tell you, I mean, it's really strange how all that progressed to where it ended up. And it all comes down to what they call the gods, gold, oil, drugs, and slavery. That's what always drives most of the wars.
Well, see another thing. I don't want to delve too far into it. I don't want to get kicked off. But over there, if you look at those countries, I mean, you have the sheik. The sheik is the strong man of the tribe. That they've always had a leader. They're not really into voting in leadership like what we do, or like what we think we do. I'll say that.
You can say what you want on here, Stephen. If we get kicked off, we're just getting kicked off YouTube. And if you don't see us on YouTube next week, go to Rumble or Twitter.
If you don't already follow us, give us a follow on Rumble. Our whole catalog's on there. We've done a lot of episodes on weather manipulation, government conspiracies. We go as deep as we can on these topics. So if you don't already follow, take a minute and go follow. But continue, Stephen.
And another thing that may go along with that 6th grade education is once they're that age, they're marrying age anyhow.
That is insane. That is actually insane.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess if they're completely covered, like you can't see their eyes or anything, you really, nobody can pass judgment if they're marrying 12-year-olds.
Well, you say that's insane, and I agree it is. But I know somebody from our hometown that got married at 14.
Yeah, probably not because her daddy was receiving a pretty good dowry.
No.
Yeah.
She done went and got knocked up.
yeah. That's a little bit different. But it's like Stephen said, they're arranged marriages. Like they don't get to choose.
No. Nope. And I mean, it's some of the other stuff along with it. Some of it's actually taking place in America where somebody has, disgraced the family, and they would be.
Well, we just talked about the.
Yeah, they would be unalived because of that.
It was in Washington State a few weeks ago. This girl's parents tried to kill her in the school parking lot because she wouldn't agree to an arranged marriage. And I think it was middle school or early high school.
Yeah, she was young.
Yeah.
But I just this headline caught my eye for a minute. Maybe we can switch to a little bit less pleasant topic or more pleasant topic for a minute.
More pleasant. Let's go more pleasant.
More, but also less. So, 2 men were found dead while searching for Bigfoot.
Yeah, that was that's pretty interesting out there. It's
so it says the men were found dead in a remote forest while searching for Sasquatch, according to authorities in Washington State. The 2 men were from Portland, Oregon, and were found dead after a 3-day search was launched. This is shortly after Christmas. After a family member reported that the pair had not returned from a trip to Gifford Pinchot National Forest, I'm probably butchering that name, to search for proof of Bigfoot. The search involved over 60 volunteers who went in with aircraft, dogs. It apparently was heavily wooded and brutally cold. both deaths appear to be due to exposure based on weather conditions and ill preparedness, is what the sheriff's office is saying. The victims were 37 and 59, and the conditions of the Cascade Mountains had been frigid the days before, which included snow, freezing rain. Rescuers had to battle high water levels in the area and fallen trees. But yeah, hundreds of sightings of Bigfoot have been reported in this area.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of documentaries also from this area of the United States that you can find where people go and look for Bigfoot and describe their encounters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Alan actually sent me that article a couple weeks ago. I don't know. That's strange. I guess that's possible. Were they experienced hunters though? I mean,
I don't think it was their first rodeo. Alan said it happened near a friend of his cabin. Now, Alan, do you know? Do you know anything about it? Like, were they first of all, have people seen Bigfoot around there? Or, I know that you're pretty into that too.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I think it was. I'm trying to remember the year now. I remember if it was 2019 or 2020 or somewhere. I actually had reports from two different people from Oregon talking to me about Bigfoot. The one guy was a guy who was going out cutting firewood, and when he was cutting the firewood up in this particular area there in Oregon, they were messing with him. He was seeing them. They would do things to mess with him, to try to scare him out of the area, stuff like that.
Really?
Yes. And another guy.
Do you know if it was in the what you said, Oregon, right?
What part of the state is this in?
This was in the Cascades. I think it goes from Oregon into Washington.
Okay, so that would be in the northern part. The two reports I actually had, they were actually from the southern part of the state. So, but yeah, there are reports of Bigfoot all over Oregon. A lot of it. Cliff Baraj, he actually has a Bigfoot museum. I can't recall the name of the town that it's near, but yeah, there are a lot of reports of it. What it sounds like to me is, whether these guys were experienced or not, it sounds like they really went out unprepared and they went in farther than what they should have, which could definitely happen. I'm not. To me at this point, I wouldn't blame Bigfoot for this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm trying to remember. There's a Bigfoot documentary on Prom that I think it may be called Discovering Bigfoot or Chasing Bigfoot, something like that. Yeah. But if you have Amazon Prime, it's about this guy who, when he was younger, he actually had a Bigfoot sighting, and he described it. It wasn't a big one. He described it as almost hominid, like a missing link type situation. And he said that it changed his whole life. So after he sees this Bigfoot, he sells everything and he moves into the woods and has been in the woods like 30 years trying to find Bigfoot again. And this documentary follows him and his friends trying to catch another sighting.
Okay. I think Discovering Sasquatch, I believe that's the documentary that Todd Standing put out. He's from Canada.
Okay.
And Chasing Bigfoot, I cannot recall that man's name at the moment. But yeah, that's a little bit, that's a different documentary from the Todd.
Yeah, he so one of the things they do in this documentary, and it may be, you said you knew the people who did hunting Bigfoot?
Yeah, the killing Big. It was originally put out there as Killing Bigfoot. Yeah, I know about half of those guys.
Then it may be one of the other ones, but the dude who did this. So one of the things they do is put out apples and fruit.
Yeah,
and they put a tracker in one of the strawberries, and so it gets 8. And they got GPS, like satellite GPS tracking, like whatever ate the strawberry. and it's moving at incredible speeds.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't like, Bigfoot, there's definitely something, because they found tracks too, like human-like tracks.
Yeah.
Where the excrement ended up. So even if it wasn't Bigfoot, there's something that is human-like or humanoid out there.
Yeah, the Olympic project is in Washington. Shane Corson is part of that. I've talked to him before, which he's a good guy. It's they go out and they do things. I believe it's called the Skookum cast. If you want to look that up, it's a big cast where they had put apples near a muddy spot or a mud bog or whatever there, and something had actually laid down. Of course, the detractors of it are going to say, well, this was probably a moose that laid down, but I don't know. It's most people seem to be under have the idea that it's more than likely a Bigfoot Sasquatch. With that, if you can find that Skookum cast.
So I found, this may be a better picture. Let me see. I'll snip this out, Stephen.
Yeah. Boring, Oregon is where Cliff Bruckman has his museum at. He was one of the cast finding Bigfoot.
Alan said, I think I might have found it, but I'm waiting on him. He said there's a documentary there talking about two clans of Bigfoot fighting in Washington. I like to watch that.
Yeah. I know.
Was it just the foot, Stephen?
No. It was part of the body where it had actually laid down in the mud.
Yeah. So this is saying that it's just kind of pointing out the different parts. I think this is the cast, and it's just highlighted with different parts where. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a big foot.
Yeah.
The foot's as long as his body.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the documentary that Alan's talking about right now, but I know that in the 1830s, the Bigfoot in Washington, a missionary had gone there to preach to the local people in the area. And the natives in the area, they would end up with their women and children missing from the Bigfoot there. And those Bigfoot were known for whistling. Some of the guys refer to them as the whistling bears, which they're not bears.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rachel showed me, I guess there's something circulating on Facebook that like most Bigfoot sightings are just bears standing up on their hind legs. And I'm like, if you get up north, like that would be impossible. Like to not be able to distinguish a bear and a 14-foot tall Bigfoot.
Yeah, because people up there are used to seeing bears. They see bears all the time. People who live in those western states, they see black bears and grizzly bears, stuff like that. They see them often. They're all over Yellowstone.
I want them run into a Bigfoot.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look around.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So changing gears, one thing that we need to follow up on that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So you remember the OpenAI whistleblower, the ChatGPT whistleblower that quote unquote killed himself?
Yeah.
So his parents do not believe that he passed away from suicide, and they've ordered a second autopsy, which you know how that goes. Like if he did get taken out, it probably wasn't normal means that would be detectable. Let me see. I actually have a video of his parents. Wait for a minute.
A vigil tonight for the whistleblower researcher of OpenAI who died last month. It was held in Milpitas for 26-year-old Suchir Balaji. There are a lot of questions about his death. Balaji's parents hired a private investigator just yesterday. They don't believe their son would have died by suicide.
Yeah, I was the last person to speak with him. he was happy mood. He's not depressed or anything. And it was his birthday week.
He made plans of going to CES in January. That was the last phone conversation he had with anyone. He went into his apartment, never came out. There was no suicide note left, and there was nobody else in the scene. That doesn't mean they can just come to conclusion. And we have seen the bloodshots in the bathroom, signs of fight in the bathroom.
Vigil organizers say they're
So yeah, they're saying that they saw signs of a struggle.
Yeah.
But like I said, even if they order a second autopsy, I don't think they're going to find anything, because if they did take him out, it's going to be undetectable.
Mhm.
But Cecil loves Chat GPT.
I do like it. It's helped me out a lot.
And I have an interesting experiment that somebody's doing with Chat GPT that we'll play here real quick.
I actually, since my little run with it, I had like a 4-day run with Chat GPT, and I haven't touched it since. So
I
anymore.
I knew something was up when you weren't talking about it anymore. But here's what this fellow's doing with Chat GPT.
ChatGPT, we're under attack from the front left and front right. Respond accordingly.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
If you need any further assistance, just let me know.
Degrees, then sweep across the field of fire, stopping every 5 degrees to fire 1 round. You should also have some variation in the pitch.
Firing 1 round at each 5-degree interval with variations in pitch. If you require any further actions, feel free to let me know.
Good job, you saved us.
I'm glad I could help. I'm sorry, but I don't have the capability to retrieve the current code.
I'll give you some more random left and right moves and just throw a couple degrees of variation on the pitch axis as well.
So this is showing the strength of this thing, some durability.
Yeah. So that guy's going to the military Olympics if he keeps developing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's with that right there, with that kind of technology, you know that they have technology at least that advanced already. You know, it's and if the computer, the super quantum computer, actually develops its own intelligence, whatever it will deem a threat, I believe it will take it out.
You know, I may have found an expert that we could get as a guest sometime to talk about this quantum business. That I think would be really cool.
With the gun thing that we just watched, I love video games, and I've played a lot of video games that have sentry guns, so I'm for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could just think about that for your home application. You just set up a gun and be like, okay, Chat GPT, if anything walks through the door.
I mean, no, the wartime applications too, they're kind of terrifying, and you know the potential use of any kind of technology like this against civilians and things is always a concern.
Dude, pair that with facial recognition technology.
Yeah,
and if you think we're at war with another country, and think about all the metadata that's being gathered from everybody on the planet right now.
Yeah,
and it can identify you in a split second and know whether you're hostile or not, even with a mask on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's terrifying. Like you could have sentient drones armed with this sort of technology that could just
Well, the more advanced it gets too, it's going to be able to read like other cues too, like blood pressure, heart rate, things like that to determine hostility and stuff too.
But here's where my mind goes with it. Communism was something that was a plague on the world in the last century.
Yeah.
And if you go to adding up all the numbers, the people who Mao killed off or starved to death, Hitler did that too. Stalin did that too. Mussolini did that too.
Yeah.
It's what is it, over 100 million people that were either starved to death, killed off because they were not compliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have this right here, something that's simply a machine, it doesn't have a conscience or anything else. It's going to follow orders.
I mean, it seems like it was pretty stoked to help.
Well, that also might be the end of them, though, because there's situations where they're learning these robots,
Mhm.
and it's absolutely terrifying that think about.
Yeah.
And I'll play an example of this. Like, you remember iRobot?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they are training these Tesla bots, and for whatever reason, this person had an idea to let this Tesla robot watch iRobot.
I mean, I would 100%.
Look at this. Look at it stepping back.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like they're training this robot in fear.
Yeah.
And if a robot can learn fear, it can learn all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, what about the ones y'all covered this on maybe Aware Enough Folk, where the robots had learned to communicate with each other, and they had even developed their own language.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. And the thing with artificial intelligence, the more knowledge it gains, and especially if they run it into the quantum systems, like everybody's like they're probably already doing. Let's be real. They're going to develop something that we can't trace. Like, it's just a matter of time. They probably have already done it. Like the one that escaped, it's like little processor by connecting to Aruba, and then it connected to Wi-Fi, and then it got into the internet. Like,
it is only, and you know what's funny? That was also an X-Files episode.
Yeah.
Where the AI was just trying to get out of its box, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's funny that people were having that idea in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, actually, which, you start looking into these big companies like the private equity firms, like the big ones that everybody knows, BlackRock. And you can actually Google this. BlackRock has been using a version of AI to help with their investments since the 80s. And the name of that artificial intelligence is called Aladdin. We've talked about that before. But, private equity is pretty much ruining everything. And, if they are, regardless of whether it's only an algorithm that's called AI or not, they've had a competitive edge, and it's obvious.
Dare I?
Yeah.
Dare I go to ChatGPT?
We're going to see Lincoln dunking a basketball this time?
And ask it what I should invest my money into.
I bet you could.
Yeah.
But you'd probably make more money if you just followed politicians' trades.
Yeah.
There's a dude that's following politicians' trades, and he's like, no other people on the planet could be like plus 300% on every investment they make.
Yeah.
But one industry that's being targeted by private equity that is scary and maddening is the $23 billion funeral home industry.
Yeah.
Apparently funeral homes are being bought up at such a crazy pace that increases. You already have like $300 to $500 increases in cremation costs from 2018 to 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And $1,000 or more for funerals just since 2018. So private equity has quietly been buying up basically every funeral home that's for sale, and they're forecasting that by 2030 funerals could be up over 70% from what they are today.
That's what I always say. I can't afford to die. Like, like there's everything you do has a tax or is going up substantially in cost, and wages are staying pretty much the same for anybody that's, I don't know if a middle class really exists anymore.
Well, and another thing to think about during this period, you've got 73 million baby boomers who are going to be dying.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why private equity is snatching all of this up. But they're saying that by 2030, basically, you could be paying almost 20 grand for just a burial.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I'm sure that it'll be financeable. Like we can finance it at
29%.
Yeah, 29% interest for 30 years.
I don't know, man. The way that everything's going, like in my area, I make good money. No joke. In the area where I live, what I make is considered like really good money. I live paycheck to paycheck myself in this area. And for example, the area, everything has gotten so bad. There was 2 people in our hometown that recently died because they were trying to dig coal out of a hill to heat their house because they couldn't afford it. Heating bills. That's how desperate things are getting now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a weird time to be alive. Just keep pushing, I guess. But
yeah,
the thing with the funeral homes, when my father passed away, I mean, we did a pretty bare minimum funeral for him, and it was like $15,000. You know what I mean? Like, it was high for this area. I don't know. What are we supposed to do in the instance that people can't afford funerals? What are we going to do?
Yeah, because the cost of cremation is also increasing.
Yeah. It's going to turn into a desperation situation where people are going to go back to wrapping people in sheets and burying them in the backyard. That's the only thing that you're going to be able to do. And then that's going to be a crime.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That you can be assured that will be a crime. It's especially since there are cities in this country that have completely banned someone from planting some kind of small garden in their backyard. Yeah. It's illegal to catch rainwater in some cities in this country.
Yeah. It's so insane. I just don't understand where we're headed as a nation. And the only, it's vote local. It's not. It's starting to show its colors around here. People are getting fed up with local governments, and that's going to spread.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique situation that we're in for sure.
There's supposed to be checks and balances on that. It's whether it's a small town council member or whatever it is. I mean, there's paperwork that they have to fill out every year, and it has to be on file at City Hall. And I mean, it'd be pretty easy for somebody to go check that out and see whether or not their documents are actually factual.
Well, the situation that's occurring in my hometown right now that's unfolding, it's turning out that there's not a lot of documents that's supposed to be there. So, I mean, that's what it is. The only people that want to go into politics anymore, it seems like, are sociopaths, really, that are looking out for number one and don't really care a whole lot for.
That's probably always been the case, though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are those politicians out there. It's like, I'm going to run for this. I'm going to make a difference.
Yeah.
I
mean, maybe like 20.
Yeah. A few 100,000. But I mean, it's just a desperate time. And with the cost of everything going up, why are they raising our fucking funeral prices? We're going to need that more than anything.
Well, private equity is what's keeping the real estate market inflated too.
Yeah. Well, totally. With that right there, I know that you have looked into it. As the same people who are buying up all these homes, the same companies that are buying up the homes.
It all waterfalls up. Like there's shell companies that they have. They all own each other. It all leads back to the same few private equity, because all the private equities own each other too.
Yeah, it's George Carlin said earlier in the show, he's way ahead of his time. So it's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
Something we were talking about the Taliban a minute ago. I found another article in the stack that we haven't gotten to get to. Apparently, millions of taxpayer dollars are also being used to support the Taliban
every week.
Yeah. So it says that the article starts out millions of U.S. tax dollars end up in Taliban pockets every week, according to this guy named Jazz Cannon shared it on LinkedIn. But it featured a conversation between an Afghan American veteran and a congressman from Tennessee, explaining how $40 million a week lands in that $40 million a week lands in the hands of the Taliban. The veteran said that $40 million of American people's money is shipped to Afghanistan and has been since September 2021. He added that the intention of the State Department is that the money goes to the Afghan International Bank and is given to, quote unquote, local implementing partners or NGOs, but this is not the case. As the AIB lacks authority to auction or convert that money and instead hands the $40 million over to the Taliban-controlled central bank. From here, Taliban members, including Noor Ahmad Agha, who has been sanctioned by the United States for financing IED attacks that have also killed American soldiers. This man holds auctions where the money is basically given to the Taliban system. And he says that individuals who hold basically this license for auction can convert the money that they are invited to bid, and the winning bid is always placed by someone associated with that network, sanctioned terrorist groups. Yep. So $40 million a week that are supposed to be going to NGOs in Afghanistan are being auctioned off to sanctioned terrorist networks.
You know what really pisses me off about that? Besides it just being a ridiculous thing anyway. You and I used to work for a company, I'm not going to say the name, that had a branch. It was a bank. They had a branch in Mexico that was somehow funding terrorists.
Cartels,
and they were fined $2.4 billion and essentially forced out of the United States for the most part. And here our government is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, and again, imagine what $40 million a week could do for Maui, East Palestine, North Carolina, Tennessee, California at this point.
Yeah.
And instead, I mean, this seems like very easy, like a no-brainer to quit spending on NGOs where people hate us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and I don't even put it on them for hating us.
Well, I say us loosely, like who hate our government.
Well, I mean, we went in and we decimated complete countries, and
That's true. That's true.
And there were organizations there for sure, you know, and things like that should have been gone, but we didn't just hit them. We were taking out schools. We were taking out everything.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if it's this clear that $40 million a week is going to sanctioned terrorist organizations, something should probably change. Like, if you're trying to give that money to people who we decimated their villages and stuff, that's different. Yeah. And you know, they deserve money and deserve help, but these terrorist organizations are taking the money and not giving it to them, or instead turning it back.
I don't know how true this is. You guys can correct me, or somebody can fact check me. I'm sure a lot of things I say might need fact checked, but I feel like the Taliban was a CIA organization creation, was it not?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some similar thoughts along ISIS.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think honestly, that's what I was alluding to earlier. If like you look at Afghanistan in the 60s, you look at Iran in the 60s, pre-Contra and stuff, they were happy people. And I don't think it's I don't think it's a coincidence on who upset that balance. There's a common denominator there.
Yeah. There always is. And I just don't understand why. Like, the war machine makes billions and billions and trillions of dollars, though. So it probably comes down to straight money, like it always does. Everything it comes down to greed.
Well, I mean, you would have to think a very sizable part of our spending budget of money that they don't want people to know where it's going is going to these, black site projects like with Skunk Works and every one of them. Speaking of which, did you see where they confirmed that a plane hit a UFO?
No.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
they're calling it a mysterious object, but let me see if I can find the. Okay, so I think this is within the last week. FAA acknowledges a G550 in-flight object strike. They said that a Gulfstream G550 experienced a midair collision with a mysterious object at FL 270 in Miami airspace. It was earlier in December. But they said it was an unidentified metallic object at approximately 27,000 feet. So this comes from a whistleblower, and they said that they are concerned because this altitude is highly regulated Class A airspace that requires flight plans, transponders. But in this instance, there were no flight plans for the object, and the object was not emitting a transponder code. We can largely eliminate the possibility of common objects because a weather balloon would have been transponding. This altitude is too high for hobby drones, and there's no biological indicator of a bird strike. Video of the engine showed metal damage, and a FA-18F pilot wrote, "I'm concerned about the incident, concerned that it's being downplayed by the FAA, and the report is being classified as an incident and not an accident, which would require public announcement. Any accident or serious incident must be reported to the NTSB, but in this case, it's not clear whether this was reported or that it was even required." But yeah, it's totally being covered up.
Yeah.
And it would have probably been a little bit different if it had crashed. I think it just got clipped.
That reminds me of a oh man, probably back in the 90s, where people had video footage of these. I'm not exactly sure what they were. They kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like a pin or something, and they would just shoot through the air. I don't know if you ever run across any of those videos like that.
Yeah,
but it kind of makes me wonder. Was it something like that? Which it never was explained. I never did get an explanation as to what those things were back then.
No. And again, I think they're dumping a bunch of money into all of this reverse engineering. There was I did correct that yesterday, Cecil. You remember the dude that came out on Sean Ryan and was like, I got a letter or an email from the Las Vegas guy?
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking that was too convenient. Like the fact that they're saying that the dude who blew up the Tesla truck in Las Vegas, they're saying that he used ChatGPT to plan the attack. And this man was a Green Beret intelligence specialist.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, maybe ChatGPT would tell him to put a bunch of fireworks in a Tesla truck and detonate it, but
I mean, ChatGPT could have gave him cliff notes. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a really strange situation. The email apparently had a lot of lettering in it that didn't seem like it would have been wrote by a human.
Well, They that email also had squigglies like on the page that he printed off.
Yeah.
And that would only be like on a draft. Like you don't see squigglies when it gets sent to you.
No. So I mean, it's untelling. Are we leaning toward that guy wrote the email himself? Like,
I think it's just controlled up, like just to scramble the narrative.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Because to me it seems too orchestrated, and I'm getting to the point now where everything like this that's happening, I'm like, what's even the point anymore? Like, like, why are you doing this? Why? Because the guy in Vegas didn't even luckily didn't take any lives.
Yeah.
I know of. The guy in New Orleans sure did.
Oh yeah.
Which was horrible.
Well, and notice they haven't mentioned the co-conspirators much anymore on that.
Well, they never do, even in like these mass shootings and stuff. When almost every mass shooting that has happened, I always hear the first reports was, I think there was 2 or 3 people from people that were there. And then it just always comes down to one lone gunman, which, is possible for sure. But
Well, they said they had at least 3 other people planting bombs in New Orleans outside of him. And maybe the most damning thing of that whole situation was the fact that the permanent traffic barriers just so happened to be let down on the one night of year that you would want the traffic barriers up for sure.
People have trouble walking around big metal poles.
Right.
I don't know, man. There's really something really strange about it, and it's one of those things that we're never going to know. This is going to get buried in the next crazy thing that happens, just like the Vegas shooting, which was the largest in history that you hardly ever hear about anymore.
Yep.
I don't know. There'll be a school shooting or something, and a bunch of kids are going to lose their lives, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll never hear about this again. Like that's the current repetition. That's repetitive. Like it just repeats over and over. I think there was another shooting very recently in DC where 4 or 5 people got killed. I don't know.
I did bring a bonus video for us to talk about. So we have talked about the great expositions and like the theories about Tartaria, the Tartarian Empire, and how our education systems got rid of the ethereal element, like the ether, that a lot of conspiracy theorists say that used to be modes of energy. This video is actually one of the craziest videos I've seen in the last couple of years. I don't know what to think about it. I wanted to share it and see what you all thought. Check this out.
Let me get my glasses on. Let's make this sucker on the big screen. Can you go back to the beginning?
Yeah. Look at this.
Snap. Told you. like it's definitely generating some kind of electricity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Pulling energy from the air.
Well,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes sense. All these places with these domes, they're typically made out of some kind of metal, some conduit.
If the next invasion is in Poland, then we'll understand why.
Well, I mean, all of these old buildings, like the fireplaces in them and stuff.
Yeah, you can't put a fire in it.
Yeah, you can't put a fire in it. There's no exhausts, so
and they're narrow too. Like, and there's a lot to. One day we're going to do a very, very long episode on Tartaria. I've had the research done for about a year now.
Yeah, maybe we should do that in the coming months. That'd be a good winter topic.
Yeah, I kind of want to revise some of it, but yeah, it would be good.
Send it all to Chat GPT.
That's what I'm gonna do. Chat GPT, summarize this 15,000 words for me.
If this dude can get Chat GPT to control his guns, I think you can get it to refine an article.
That's true. It'll probably kick back and be like, this is false information. Sometimes.
Yeah.
When I was messing, that's the reason I quit messing with it. I was trying to get it to do something. It was like, this could be harmful or considered false information. I was like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah. But related to energy, they apparently have created the first carbon-14 diamond battery.
Sweet.
And this battery, let me see who. So it was the UK Atomic Energy Authority and the University of Bristol have allegedly created the first carbon-14 diamond battery. And we're never going to see it because they say that the half-life on this battery is 5,700 years.
Yeah, we got to keep buying and buying batteries. They're not going to match. Yeah.
So, I mean, how many? We've got at least like 5 or 6 of these a year where it's like game-changing energy-related stuff.
Yeah.
That nobody's ever going to see.
Yeah, there was a kid that was making like energy in his backyard from the ether. I haven't heard much from him. I hope he's still living.
I saw his live the other day. So he's like into all the 1800 stuff.
Yeah.
His whole house is nothing but like he's got an 1800 stove, got 1800s everything. His lives now are a little bit Tesla-y, and then the rest of it's him playing like 1800 style piano, like old style. But yeah, he got a stern talking to for wireless energy transmission.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we got through a lot. We didn't get through everything, but we're coming up on 2 hours. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to get through everything.
We got through a lot. So, I mean, if something else crazy happens next week, we may be talking about one thing again on Friday, but if not,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't know like how long a book is now. I heard somebody say around 12,000 to 20,000 words. This resources you sent me is 12,670 words. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get through it all.
Well, we got through a lot, and there's a lot going on, and I think that a lot of this is doom and gloom, but I do feel like people are starting to open their eyes to a lot of the atrocities and stuff that are going on. And we're just out here trying to tell everybody about it. So,
and even if everything that's happening in the news and everything that we see happening around us is doom and gloom, you can always make a peace within yourself.
Yeah.
It's very hard to accept what's happening around you and things that you see every day, but you just have to try to push through and think positive about the small things that you can. That's what it's coming down to.
Yep.
We're not going to have big events that make you feel good anymore for a long time, if ever again. So you need to enjoy every little thing you possibly can.
Yeah, we'll be here until the EMP strike. So,
and even after that, we'll be on your fucking ham radio.
Yeah. So if you don't already follow us, our main social media is Twitter for show updates, stuff like that. Follow us on Rumble. Rumble's where our catalog is mainly. It's relatively new. We uploaded a bunch of a backlog. We don't have a ton of followers there yet. But we do go live there every Friday. We're here at 7 Eastern. And then we typically do Saturday shows at 8 Eastern.
Yeah.
We've got some guests on the horizon. Hopefully we can have Stan back to talk to us about Atlantis. That I need to reach out to him next week and see if we can get him back in late January, early February.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Keep on keeping on, dogs. And go ahead and like and follow, like Tully said. And if you want to buy us coffee, you can do that up there. I'm getting good at that. Like,
I would point the wrong way.
Which
It's this way.
This way.
It's right there. But yeah. And if you have any news or if you have any stories you want us to cover, please go ahead and email us to witf@gmx.com. And we'll go ahead and cover that as well. If you want to be a guest, you can reach out to us through that email as well. I'll relay it to the guy that books everybody, which is Tully. I'm not allowed to talk to you if you want to be a guest until you actually come on the show. So thank you for watching us because we are watching you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Landa.